Garrosh versus Thrall.
All right, so one thing we didn't really touch on also was the decks here that these two players are going to be playing. Ek0p is going to be having Hunter, Shaman, and Druid. He's the only person playing Shaman in the tournament, I believe, as his 3 decks. And we do have Trump with the Warlock, Druid, and Warrior. So pretty interesting. I mean, we're going to see these first matchups coming out. We are going to see Trump, obviously, playing that Warrior deck. And I mean, how do you feel about leading with the Warrior deck here?
Well, I really like the Warrior deck against this particular lineup because it's not really weak to any of these decks. Like Shaman coming into it, a lot of the traditional thought on it is that it's weak versus Shaman, which Ek0p is very well known for leading with. He really likes his Shaman deck a lot. It's certainly his personal favorite. He's got a great track record with it. But Shaman players a lot of times believe that they have an edge against Warrior, but Kit disagrees, and he's sort of the main innovator of Warrior and a guy who just continues to play it and go beast mode with it time after time. He thinks that Warrior has the edge here, and if Trump's been paying any attention to what Kit is saying, that could be indicative of his choice to lead this, but I think that Ek0p would give the edge to Shaman for sure.
So interesting turn 1s there. We do have the Argent Squire. That's pretty much ideal for a Shaman. And then we're going to have the Coined Armorsmith coming out here, which I do like. I mean, obviously you can Whirlwind or Shield Slam, just like that, but it's not very efficient. You're just getting rid of that Divine Shield. So it seems like a pretty smart play here. Now, I mean, with the Pyromancer coming out here, I mean, do you think the obvious move is just take out the Pyro and then poke the shield?
Yeah, I like the plays on actually both sides of this. When he plays the Wild Pyromancer, it's a threat to this Armorsmith if Trump's not able to deal with it. So it's not going to be very useful against Warrior throughout as the game goes on. When he's got a loaded board, obviously casting spells and getting the 1 damage isn't what you like. So taking out this Armorsmith is a huge concern of his, and that's basically the whole reason you play. He thought about toteming, but I think toteming is a little bit worse than getting value from the Wild Pyromancer where you can.
Makes sense. And you're going to play that shield block, get the card draw, and just elect to end the turn. Not going to deal with that Blood Mage just yet. We do see the Unbound Elemental coming out here now. And just looking on the side, I mean, does he have a lot of overload in this deck? It'd be interesting to say. I mean, I assume he has 2 Feral Spirits, he has Lightning Storms and so on, as well as Lightning Bolts. So, you know, if he could draw an Overload, that would be a very nice situation for him. You always love getting the Overload on an Unbound Elemental. And we are going to see actually a nice play here by Trump. He's going to get the Whirlwind and be able to finish it off before any possible Overload can come out. Obviously, Ek0p will get the card draw from the Blood Mage, but still, Trump gets the card draw from his Acolyte as well. So I think a very good turn there for Trump.
Yeah, a huge pan out. Something to note interesting this game is that, I'm
not sure what just happened there. Okay. Job's done. Okay, we're good, looks like.
So one of the things that's hugely interesting to note is that Trump on turn 3 elected to use Shield Block instead of using his Armor Up. And now, a lot of people would consider that a mistake, not only because he has Shield Slam in his hand, but because it forgoes an opportunity cost on his Shield Block, on his Armor Up as well. But as you saw this game unfold, what's actually ended up happening is he's been able to stave off the amount of damage that he could predict that Ek0p would be able to deal. And now he's found himself in a board position where he's facing down an Azure Drake. He's actually got the liberty of being able to armor up and use this Shield Slam if he wants to, where he can also draw a lot of cards between Slam and this Acolyte and this Execute to finish it off. But I would prefer to save Execute, I think, for a bigger minion. But a really, really good analysis from him in terms of how to move forward. He knew exactly how much armor he would be having based on what Ek0p was playing, and it's given him a lot of options for this turn, and that's something that Warrior really likes, is a lot of options.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, it looks like he's actually considering the Kor'kron Elite, so I mean, okay, he's going to trade out the Kor'kron Elite. So how do you feel about that versus just armoring up and shield slamming?
I think it's the most efficient direct answer to it.
Okay.
And it depends on how he predicts his opponent's going to react. So Ek0p here really looking at using this Fire Elemental in the face, and again, I like this a lot because he's mindful of the fact that his opponent can armor up and then shield slam it. Okay. So this is going to force his opponent to either have a lot more damage in hand or to use something like an Execute or to have a second shield block if he wants to use shield slam. So again, very solid play so far on both sides of this, using cards sort of a-traditional to what they're...
Now this I really like. I mean, he's going to get one card draw from the Acolyte, and then I imagine he's going to attack it in and then execute. So he gets 2 card draws and probably kills off the Fire Elemental, which seems like a pretty good play. Okay, so he's not going to use execute actually. He doesn't even need to. He can just do the slam plus that, so even better. And should be able to armor up here, and honestly, a very nice turn. I mean, 2 card draws plus just the 1 spell, and he ends the turn. it seems like it's looking pretty good for Trump so far.
Yeah, pretty big turns again on both sides of these boards, but now you're going to see the opportunity to kind of sit back and relax. He's not under a lot of pressure, Ek0p, but he also has a Hex in his hand, so he's able to deal with the first major threat that Trump's going to play. So what he's going to be looking to do going forward is that, that's a big draw.
The cleave is going to be really nice, man.
That's a huge one as well.
Yeah.
With extra spell damage coming in.
Yeah, the cleave with the Azure Drake is so good. Being able to do the double 3 damage there, exactly how much he needed on both, is pretty ideal, man. And I mean now, he's thinking about the Gadget Stand Auctioneer. Obviously could go Stormforge Axe and take down that Taskmaster, or he could go Stormforge Axe and attack the Drake and then do a Lightning Storm. There are some options here. But none of them too easy. And then there's obviously a risky play of looking for a spell power totem and trying to do it that way. There are a few different plays, but I mean, what do you think makes the most sense here?
I think it makes a lot of sense to use Auctioneer and to follow up with Lightning Storm.
Okay.
But it also makes a lot of sense to be using Stormforge Axe and Lightning Storm because you're not likely to get a lot of value from your life later on in the game because the Stormforge Axe is basically just going to be damage to his face. So I like this play because it's pretty good. And it also Lightning Rods 4 damage to this Gadget Stand Auctioneer. But he doesn't have a lot of fantastic plays because now what he's going to be facing down is this is where Warrior starts to get extremely scary. It's at a safe life total, and it's playing these big legendary cards that he's going to be dropping turn after turn now.
And he has such a full hand. I mean, he has all the cards in the world. So, I mean, he got 3 draws from the Acolyte, if I'm not mistaken,
Yeah,
which
3 draws
is just perfect.
A draw off a slam as well.
Yep.
The game is looking really well for him. He was able to, again, to diffuse what was happening and make it to this board position.
Now, if you're in this situation, there are obviously some different options here. Now, are you looking to try to remove this with spells to Gore Howl it? Okay, so he's going to use Gore Howl and just try to keep that Drake alive. Now, I mean, once the Gore Howl is out, this is kind of a tough situation. I mean, he doesn't really have a lot of great board presence here. He can play the totem and stuff, but I mean, he has a Flame Tongue, which is nice. He has the Argus, but 2 hexes. There's nothing on the board, and kind of you're in this situation where you're playing stuff just to die into the Gore Howl. So how do you kind of play around that, knowing the Gore Howl is out? Is it still worthwhile just dropping the Flame Tongue?
I kind of like dropping the Flame Tongue here because you have to start developing something to get going forward. But I also want to talk about Trump's play versus Ek0p's play. Ek0p had a really good foresight there to use Stormforge Axe on this 4-2 Drake later on, and Trump was really good with the Gore Howl because obviously Ek0p anticipates him attacking the Gadget Stand Auctioneer with the Azure Drake, so maybe he doesn't have an efficient way to deal with it. So using that Gore Howl there as opposed to using just other efficient cards in his hand not only develops his board, but it may throw off Ek0p's game as well. So again, continue to be both very good plays on both sides of the board.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, now we're in this situation. There are a few different ways to do it. The Baron Geddon looking pretty nice, being able to do 2 damage. So you can obviously take out the Stoneclaw for free, put that at 1 HP. He could finish off with a Whirlwind next turn. Assuming that it doesn't get healed up by Healing Stream or something like that, which is pretty nice setting up for that. He doesn't use a charge on his Gore Howl, and he has the Kor'kron Elite in his hand. He has a lot of strong minions. So I mean, Hex almost has to come out.
Well, Fire Elemental is certainly an interesting draw because it gives you an opportunity to pay some more HP, but 7 is a lot more to pay at this point. So he may be reluctant to do that. But touching when I mentioned that this Baron Geddon was such a huge draw, it's a really essential card to defeating Shamans because it allows them, or it doesn't allow them to develop their board with something like all their totem powers anymore. And it also does a really good job at clearing out Feral Spirit because of cards like Whirlwind.
Now the Argus seems like a pretty smart play because that could put it above the Whirlwind total. Do you think that's something that he's thinking about in this situation?
I think a bigger thing that he may be thinking about is how to clear this taunt totem without having to use a charge of his axe because he's running really low on cards, but he's still able to kind of use his life as a resource if he can stave this off. So I think one of his bigger thought processes is how he can just continue to develop his board moving forward and what that means for his ability to actually win.
Okay. So just really wants to save those charges of the Stormforged Axe and just try to be as efficient as possible here. But still, I mean, this hand is looking pretty fearsome, and you talked about how important the life totals are. Taking 7 damage from that, and the Grommash gets drawn, so that becomes even more important when you have Grommash plus the Cruel Taskmaster to activate the Enrage. The Whirlwind obviously could do that as well. You have the Kor'kron Elite with the charge. You have a Faceless for that. I mean, there's a lot of potential damage here in Trump's hand.
Even though Trump has a lot of ways to deal with this board, this is actually a pretty tough turn because he has so many ways to kill it. So his issue isn't killing this board; it's how he does it in the most efficient manner. And this is a spot where, again, you see Ek0p save this charge from a weapon to potentially use it later. This is a spot where you see a lot of players give themselves an opportunity to fall behind because they use their removal spells or their answers inefficiently as opposed to as efficiently as possible. So it's really important that he's mindful and careful of how he approaches this turn so he doesn't lose control. Yeah, it's definitely a very interesting turn. I mean, he has a lot of different ways to do it. Like you talked about, we have the charge from the Gorgon Elite, we have the Whirlwind, the Cruel Taskmaster. I believe he still has the Shield Slam as well. The Gore Howl looks like it's going to be used on that Stoneclaw. Get rid of that. Now, I mean, okay, he's going to go with a Grommash and probably just enrage it off of that. So that's pretty interesting. And now, electing to armor up, and with the second Hex in hand. Okay, so there's a couple ways he could do this obviously now, but I don't think he wants to take face damage with the weapon. Right.
So I mean, it's like you Fire Rally plus Lightning Bolt plus an attack, but that would be, do you think he's going to go with the Fire Rally plus the Lightning Bolt and then his Argus, or okay, looks like he wants just Hex.
I'm sort of interested that he chooses the Hex thing instead of developing the Fire Elemental. Yeah. I guess what he's trying to do. Oh, he's trying to pull the Gore Howl below 5 attacks. That way,
so
the Fire Elemental lives through it. Yeah, that's again very observant and good play on both sides of the board. I'm a little surprised he chose to use Grommash that turn. Yeah. Because his opponent's already used 1 Hex, so it's something to think about. But he had so many other ways to answer it, and Grommash is such an important tool for being able to actually finish your opponents. For sure. And I mean, it is now below that Fire Rally damage. The Ragnaros gets dropped though, and I mean, I think he's pretty much hoping to hit face at this point. You don't really want to be wasting that charge on the totem, and good guy healing totem. Yeah, taking hate to the face, but Senor del Fuego's here to stick around. Yeah, well, actually, I mean, he's gonna. He can pay HP to do this. Perfect. Oh, yeah. Well, or he could get. Okay, so he gets. That doesn't actually matter at all because he needs to attack anyway. Right. But he's hoping he gets a taunt totem there, I imagine. Yeah. Down at 9 HP now. I mean, he has the Gorgon Elite. Does he have damage here to actually kill him? Yeah, he's got the win here. Yeah. That's going to be GG. Over to Trump game 1. He wants to show as few cards as possible. That's why he's not playing that Faceless Manipulator. The opponent knows he's got Cruel Taskmaster, but perhaps doesn't know he's got Faceless. And even though a well-played game, I think, from Ek0p, I think, in all honesty, he probably played that game 100%. It just goes to show you that if the Warrior can stave off the early pressure, it's able to be just an absolute monstrosity in the end game.